What a weekend in sports. Liam, I'm shaking. I'm also hungover. Let's get into it with the lead. There we go. That took a second. As people who watched the show on Friday would know, I was out of town on Friday. I was at a bachelor party, hence why I am hungover today. It's a little 2-day hangover for me. But you were running the show on Friday. How did that go?
It was good. The Oilersnation Everyday with Liam Horrobin era was short but sweet, I think is a good way to put it. We covered a lot of topics, hard-hitting news topics, of course, and I read the chat as much as I could. I did some organic ad reads.
How did those go? I didn't hear any complaints, no. So I'm giving you an A+ player grade.
One of them seemed good. I struggled with the UFC name.
Nunez or Aldana?
No, Nunez was fine. Aldana was the one I struggled with a little bit.
Fair enough. Well, welcome into Oilers Nation Everyday with Tyler Yaremchuk and Liam Horrobin. We are live on the Oilers Nation YouTube where Mistaken Mexican is in and says, should we be worried about Staios getting poached by potential new ownership in Ottawa? We'll talk about that. We got a lot of ground to cover today on the show. A lot of ground to cover live from the Sports Closet studio. Check them out online, sportscloset.ca. Owen is in and says, yo, hi guys. Have you had a wonderful weekend? Is Travis Konecny a good fit with the Oilers? What would a package look like? Oh, we're going to be talking about that too. A lot to get to today on the show. That's going to be the topic of our Sherwood Ford Giant offseason question, which we'll touch on in a bit here. But first, let's talk about what we saw this weekend in the world of sports, Liam. It's our weekend report brought to you by Betway 19+. Please play responsibly. And there was a lot going on, starting with Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final, which saw the Vegas Golden Knights come out on top in a 3-2 win. Looked like that game was going to be out of hand, like, relatively quickly. Florida claws back into it. There's what I was looking for.
Claws probably works.
They almost tie it up at the buzzer, even though this last shot that got stopped or blocked or whatever, this probably would have counted. I think they were out of time by the time Montour got the shot off. But anyways, that wasn't so much the interesting part as the scrapping after, the way things really hit a level we hadn't seen in this series in terms of the hatred between these two sides. And it all starts when Montour comes flying in and shoves McNabb into Aiden Hill. All hell breaks loose. What do you make of, first off, Vegas being up 3-1 in this series? Is it over? Do you give Florida, 5%, 10% chance?
Well, Florida were down 3-1 to Boston, so I don't think it's fair to fully rule them out. But Vegas they're just an absolute roll, aren't they? They've just done such a good job on the special teams against the Panthers in this series, just limiting chances and goals against, which is something they've just done the entire playoff run. So I don't want to rule them out because I don't want Vegas to win, but it's really, really tough to put up an argument for the Panthers right now. Yeah,
it's tough, especially with this series heading back to Vegas. Like, that place is just going to be absolutely rocking for game number 5. The Panthers are plus 150 dogs for game 5 over on Betway. And it looks like, man, Vegas is right there. Conn Smythe odds, Jonathan Marchessault is the runaway winner right now, which is interesting.
Did you see that little thing the other day? The last undrafted player to win the Conn Smythe. You know who it was?
Did it happen this century?
It happened to this century.
Yeah, since the year 2000?
Oh, no.
No, it was before 2000.
It was before 2000.
Who did it have been then?
Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, okay. I guess that technically would be it.
They brought it up on TNT to Gretzky, and Biz was like, how did you go undrafted? And Gretzky was like, it's a very long story. But there you go. The last one to do it was Wayne Gretzky, which is quite funny.
Yeah, that's really, really good. So Vegas is up 3-1 on the Panthers for those of you who still care about the Stanley Cup Final, which I'm sure there's a lot of you who are just excited for that thing to be over. That was not the best sporting moment of the weekend. Part of me says it's the Canadians going 6 for 6 at UFC 289. What would that parlay have paid out? Also, speaking of UFC 289, we talked a lot about it in the lead up. That went about as well as you probably could have scripted it.
Yeah, I mean, both the main event and the co-main event were fantastic.
You had Nunez drinking the beer, walking off, retiring, putting her gloves on the mat. Unreal.
Yeah, Oliveira is just a fantastic fighter, and it looks like we're going to get a rematch of that. Like you said, all 6 Canadians won, and we even had a banister break at Rogers Arena.
That was frightening.
Right? So that was big too. A lot of storylines, but now did you see? So the the Nunes and Aldana fight wasn't the original fight. Nunes was supposed to fight Pena, I believe her name was, something like that. So she is like the second best fighter, and now she got injured. Now she is furious that Nunes had just retired.
Oh, because now she won't get a chance.
Yeah, because that would have been like
she was ringside too.
Was she? Yeah, because that would have been her moment to like prove that she is better than Nunes, and people kind of think she could have beat her, and now she'll never get the chance because Nunes was just like, oh, I'm good.
But if you're Amanda Nunes, I mean, she was up there. I think that was her daughter she was holding.
I think so,
right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, you've won everything you need to win.
Mhm.
You really have, like, you could sit there and be like, oh, she's got to fight this person.
Nope.
That story will always be there.
Yeah.
Like, you won as much money and everything you need. Your health is still intact. She's never had like a major injury, I don't think.
I don't think so.
Why would you not walk away right now?
The hardest thing in sports is to walk away on top.
Yeah.
What does Nunes has nothing to prove against this other lady. Like, she had the other, what's her name, Aaron? Do you remember?
Pena?
Pena, that's it. Pena. She has everything to prove.
Yeah.
Nunes all good.
Need to. All right. So that also does not get my number one spot in terms of the weekend report.
All right.
What gets my number one spot is the boy Nick Taylor. I see Reed's in the chat and Dr. Gonzo's in the chat as well talking about this. The playoff was electric. Nick Taylor going birdie on 17-18 just to even be in that spot. I know Tommy Fleetwood eventually surged in, but like Nick Taylor sinking that birdie putt on 18, the big fist bump, that's absolutely unreal. That was great theater in itself. It goes to a playoff hole, and that somehow got it to a different level because, I mean, you had Fleetwood not having to take a stroke for the shot that goes into the grandstands, all of that kind of stuff. And then it all ends with this. The 70-footer, the eagle putt, the longest putt of Nick Taylor's pro career. I yelled louder than I probably did for any Oilers goal this season when this putt drops right in. The celebration, the putter throw, him and his caddy going nuts, beautiful. And then all the chaos after. First off, this crowd's going bananas. First Canadian in 69 years to win the Canadian Open. The constant cuts to Mike Weir, Adam Hadwin, Corey Connors, all watching nervously on the sideline. This whole thing was unbelievable television. They said it on the broadcast. Jim Nantz said one of the greatest moments in Canadian sports. And I saw a lot of people online being like, oh, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. I think it is, man. When you look at everything that led up to that moment, it wouldn't have been as electric. And listen, he probably would have won even if he two-putted that. If that would have finished 3 inches short of the hole and he tapped it in, I don't think Fleetwood was going to make that putt. He probably wins it anyways. But the point is, you nailed that long of a putt with that crowd watching you, with everything that had happened in the holes leading up to it, to do something that hasn't been done in almost 7 decades in Canadian golf. Dude, that is like a top moment in Canadian sports history. That was unbelievable.
It is crazy, yeah. And I mean, to happen on Canadian soil too just makes it like so much more special. And it's cool to see like Tommy Fleetwood go up and show us acknowledgement to what just happened as well. And yeah, like obviously not everybody knows who Nick Taylor is, and that's probably why he's getting discounted a little bit for what actually just happened. But like you said, that's the longest putt he's ever hit in his career, and he did it to win the Canadian Open. Like that is a very special moment.
Do we have Hadwin getting tackled, or do we not have that? I think we might have just had the putt. Okay, Adam Hadwin after getting absolutely smoked by the security guard, and then he's laughing with the security guard after. I thought that was hilarious.
Shout out to the security guard for doing his job.
Yeah,
that man is on the ball.
He is. And I mean, Adam Hadwin, it's not like he was wearing a credential or anything. Like he was literally just wearing a hoodie and jeans and running around with a champagne bottle. Like I guess you probably could have seen that coming. But man, that was awesome. And I know a lot of people say watching golf on TV is boring. It's like watching paint dry. I mean, I'm a guy who loves the sport of baseball. I will sit and watch baseball 4 or 5 hours. Look at that. Let that
look at him like spilling the champagne. He like puts his thumb over the top of the champagne bottle when he's laying on the ground.
He's like, oh, don't want to spill that out. Yeah. We only got 1 bottle. There's also like his caddy. I know it's just a little off screen, but there's another angle where his caddy's like, whoa, what's going on over here? But I know a lot of people don't like watching golf. I love watching golf on TV. I love watching baseball on TV. And I understand it. I think if you don't know the sport well and you don't like know the degree of difficulty that a lot of these things have, you could sit there and be like, it's boring. Like watching a basketball game. That's exciting, even if you've never seen the
Yep.
sport before, because it's fast-paced, right? It's easy to know what's happening and how difficult things are. It's easy to wrap your mind around why they're as gifted as they are, right?
Yes.
I think hockey's the same way. You see it every year. 9-10 influencers go viral because they're like, I just watched hockey for the first time. This is unbelievable. Hockey's that kind of sport. Football, I think, is that kind of sport as well. But with things like baseball and golf, it's a slower bleed, right? There's a lot of downtime between the action and things like that. But the reason I love those sports is because the moments that you get like this,
Very
like the
cool.
signature moments in these sports, are just always set up so perfectly. Like in hockey, a game winner in overtime. That's exciting. And it happens all bang, bang, right?
Yeah.
In baseball, like you're sitting there, heart pounding as the pitcher kind of like gets into his groove. And you never quite know the exact moments it's going to happen. And then bang, it does. And in golf, I mean, Nick Taylor's stepping up to hit that putt. The anticipation, he's getting his read, all of that. Then the anticipation of it rolling towards the hill and then bing, drops down. It's unbelievable, man. That's why I love watching sports like that, is just because the moments, the signature moments, I think they're more electric than the signature moment you get in basketball, aside from maybe, like a game-winning three, right?
Yeah.
A signature moment in football usually comes like earlier in the game. It's rarely ever the last play of the game. Like the signature moments in sports like baseball and golf, that's what get me.
Yeah, and you always remember where you are as well, right? Like there's just kind of stories to tell. And the one sports moment I will never forget is when Kawhi Leonard hit his Game 7 winner and where I was.
Yeah,
Like my dad hates basketball, hates it. He calls it netball. Like he is just so against it. And I was like, come on, like it's Game 7, like there's 2 minutes left. Let's watch it. He's all right, whatever. So he puts it on. And then even he got out of his seat and was like, holy shit, that was nuts.
Yeah.
And it's just like cool shit like that.
There's moments in every sport. Like that Raptors run created a generation of basketball fans, right?
Yes.
The Blue Jays doing what they did in 15 and 16, like that created a real big buzz in the country. And that created probably a generation of Blue Jays fans as well. I have buddies who didn't give a shit about the Toronto Blue Jays before the Batista hit. But Batista's hit turned the country onto that run and that team, right? And I really do think like Canada golf has been bubbling for a while, man. There was a long time where it was like, basically just Mike Weir. And then there was a long time, Graham DeLette got banged up a lot. He never really had a lot of good runs. Corey Connors had a couple of good runs, but then I was like, oh my God, it's like just Corey Connors at all these tournaments. But now it's Connors. Hughes has won this year. Nick Taylor's got a win.
Yep.
Adam Svensson's got a win under his belt as well. Taylor Pendrith is starting to come up. Like there are legitimately 6 Canadians every tournament, almost every weekend, who you can sit there and go like, damn, they might win this. And there's a buzz growing in Canadian golf. And I think this moment will have a similar impact to a Jose Bautista home run against the Texas Rangers and things like that, where people will know these names. Nick Taylor's a household name for good now. Yeah. Every tournament, man, SportsCenter, Sportsnet Central, they're leading with Nick Taylor if he's doing good now. He's made himself a star in Canada. I think it'll have that kind of an effect on golf in this country.
Yeah, and that's what you kind of need, right?
Yeah.
Like Canada is a growing country in sports, I think is a good way to put it. And even
it's becoming more diversified.
Yeah, and even to throw like Brooke Henderson, sorry.
Yeah,
like even she's been winning a ton.
She's one of the best. Top 5 women's golfer in the world, top 3 women's golfer in the world.
Yeah,
she's unreal.
so yeah, it's a great era. Yep. Tennis kind of went through this for a while too. It's kind of getting up there a little bit now with Felix something.
Yeah, Felix Auger-Aliassime.
Yes.
Like it.
Because it was like Milos Raonic.
It was always just Milos.
And then it was Jeannie Bouchard,
who had like
Shapovalov
flash in the pan.
And then she got her Shapovalov, and then I always got her name, but the girlie
Leila Annie Fernandez.
No, Bianca Andreescu.
Her run to the U.S. Open was awesome.
Yeah, so Canada it's just growing in a lot of departments.
Yep. Yeah, the tennis one too. Like, I mean, they've never
we're not just hockey people.
Yeah, and
Jamal Murray,
NBA Finals tonight. Yeah. I mean, Jamal Murray's a great example of this kind of a thing though, right? Where like this generation of Canadian basketball players are here because of Vince Carter in a way, right?
Yes.
Vince Carter, Steve Nash, and then like it rippled into what it is now. Where like, yeah, man, it's not uncommon. There's a couple of real good NBA players that are from Canada. I think it's all leaning that way with something.
We have
like
a pro league now.
Yeah, we have
Pro
the
Canadian Basketball League. Yeah.
100%. All right, there you go. There's your weekend report, at least from the other sports. We didn't really talk a ton of Oilers-related or hockey-related stuff in there, but you were doing the show on Friday, so you had a chance to break down the Severson thing.
Yes, are
we going Severson or Severson? I don't care.
I think I was calling him Severson.
Okay, Damon Severson, the old sign and trade. So he gets that 8th year from the Columbus Blue Jackets, $6.25 million. I think there would have been a lot of teams if you allow me to give my take on here because I wasn't here on Friday. There are a lot of teams who, if they would have given him 6.25 in free agency, I would have been like, that's probably not a smart use of your money. The reason I think Columbus is in an interesting spot with this is, one, Jarmo Kekalainen is managing for his life. This dude's getting greased if they do not make the playoffs this year or show some significant signs of improvement. He's on his last legs. And now you go, you get Provorov, who, again, I don't think Ivan Provorov's the number one. I don't think Ivan Provorov's the number two. I think Ivan Provorov at, under $5 million, 26 years old, going to a team that should be better than the Flyers were last year. Frank's been harping on, like, the NHL doesn't, and stats, like the analytics community, it's hard to evaluate defensemen, young defensemen on bad teams. I think Provorov's going to have a step forward. So now you got those two. Werenski back from injury. David Jiricek is probably going to be a top 4 D-man. And then you got Jake Bean, Adam Boquist playing behind him. Columbus is building up a legit solid blue line. And when you have Boquist, who's under $3 million for 2 more years, you have Jake Bean, who's 2.3 RFA, you're going to have Jiricek on his ELC. I think you can take a stab like Severson at 6.25, knowing that, once pieces on your team, even if you go to the forwards, talk about Kent Johnson, Kirill Marchenko, once those guys, Cole Sillinger, once they start to get really expensive, the cap will balloon, and 6.25 on Severson won't seem that bad.
Yeah, I don't think the trade obviously is what it is, but the deal for Severson is not that bad. But looking at the comparisons, like Lindholm's around the same. Who was the other player? There was another defenseman out there, whoever it may be. But like you said, like they're just putting together a really strong defensive group. And in a couple of years, when the cap goes up, whatever it may be, didn't Frank say it might go up like 18 million in like the next 3 years or something? Yeah. Like this is going to be absolute pennies for what it is. And if Columbus become a relevant team, the blue line is good. Hopefully that can help their goaltender in Lurkins, who was piss poor last season.
Having Babcock as the coach could help that too.
Yeah, and then you look at the forward group. There's pieces. Gaudreau, Line, obviously Boone Jenner's good. Mm-hmm. Jack Roslovic's actually a pretty solid player too. You just need another somewhat of a star in that group.
You need another centerman.
Yes, that's the big. You need a centerman so bad.
And today on a new episode of the DFO Rundown, every Monday and Thursday, Jason Greger and Frank Saravalli, find that wherever you get your podcast from. Frank brought up the name. My question to the guys during my segment with them was, who's the ideal centerman for them to go target? And the name Frank threw out quick was Elias Lindholm. He says Calgary is not going to go into this year with anyone on an expiring deal, anyone of significance on an expiring deal. They need to know from Hanifin, and Lindholm is in that group. Toffoli's in that group as well. Michael Backlund's in that group. Tanev, Zadorov. Those guys are all in the same group of Craig Conroy wants to know, do you want to be here? If it's yes, we're signing an extension this summer. If it's no, I'm trading you this summer. Lindholm's in that group. If he doesn't want to sign an extension in Calgary, they will move him. If you're Columbus and you're Jarmo Kekalainen, that's your guy. Get a defensively responsible center that can help insulate the kids in your lineup. Oh, and get the guy who's dynamite with Johnny Gaudreau.
I was going to say, get the guy who had a career year with Gaudreau. I see. It does seem like a really, really good fit for this one. And I floated out the idea when it was Friday's show with Jay and Bag Milk that Columbus maybe would want to consider moving that 3rd overall pick. I threw out the name Connor Hellebuck as a goaltender to like try and help him out a little bit there.
You don't do 3rd overall though. That's
you don't think, bro. I know, but you kind of maybe.
But if Leo Carlson can be like a Draisaitl-esque franchise piece, sure. You don't risk that.
It's a big move. It's a big move. But if you could sign him, maybe it works out. But yeah, like if I'm Columbus, like clearly there is no hesitation to go out and do whatever it takes to get this team back to relevancy again. And we kind of saw it a few years ago when they knocked out Tampa Bay, right? And the city's actually a pretty good hockey town once it gets going.
Dude, Columbus, like they still, I think, sold out of most of their home games this year, if I'm not mistaken. Like, that's
I don't legit. Like the Cannon, but
Cannon spooks, yeah. So we're gonna do the AMA travel trade machine right off the bat. Because here's what I cooked up for a potential Elias Lindholm. We've done Lindholm. He's now appearing for a second time on the AMA Travel Trade Machine.
He's really moving.
But here's what the trade machine cooked up for a deal between Columbus and Calgary. Lindholm and a 3rd-round pick in 2024 goes to Columbus for Corson Kuhlman's former first-round pick
Mhm.
and a 2024 first-round pick. So the basis I kind of used for this was the Bo Horvat deal. And I actually think the third-round pick could probably be taken out of this. Kuhlman's in a first is probably good enough to get this deal done. But I looked at the Bo Horvat deal. And he got it. The Islanders had a good sense they could sign him to an extension.
Yep.
So you were more comfortable giving up a lot. Maybe Columbus doesn't have that same assurance. They're going to run it in for a year with him. But he got Atu Radu, Anthony Beauvillier, and a first-round pick in a much deeper 2023 draft. A full year of Lindholm gets you Corson Kuhlman's, who was a first-round pick
Mhm.
and trending in a very good direction as a prospect.
Yep.
And it still gets Calgary another first-round pick in this deal. If you're Calgary, I think you'd love a chance to add, again, Alberta boy as well, played in the AJHL.
Brooks Bandits.
Brooks Bandit. So there's that element to it. He could be a potential top pairing D-man for you down the line, right? I think that's a good stab to take on a prospect. And you get a first-round pick as well. Who knows what you can do with that? Maybe I would take the third out of this, but that's what I look at. And I compared it, again, to the Horvat deal. Beauvillier was a bit of a cap dump. And then you got a top prospect and a first-round pick.
So the way I'm kind of looking at this deal is just based off what you said a second ago, where Calgary doesn't want to go into next season with expiring contracts. So right now they have Hanifin, Tanev, and Zadorov as expiring contracts. I think if you lock down two of those guys, this makes this deal a lot easier to do and bringing in a young guy like Kuhlman's rather than trying to find a guy who needs to be in the NHL right now. I think Kuhlman's is going to be a great player in the NHL. Beaumont boy, I believe he is, and he's got a lot of talent. He's pretty thick guy too. Like can play very well both
He's been playing
ways.
college hockey.
Yeah, so I think he needs another year of pro hockey in the American League. But I wouldn't be surprised if like halfway through the year he was in the NHL. To be honest, if he was on a different team other than Columbus.
And someone says, why would they do this? And I think that's a fair question to some extent if you're Calgary, because if you're trying to stay competitive next year, you don't want to give up Lindholm for just future assets. But also the GM, Craig Conroy, first year on the job. If he wants to take I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a longer view if a guy like Lindholm says, I'm not re-signing with you. And, maybe they'd get more than them. Like, again, Lindholm's in the Selke conversation some years. So I would definitely take the third round pick out of this. But Kuhlman's in a first gets you two damn good assets, man. And you can flip that first. You don't have to hold on to it. I just don't know how many teams out there would give you a ready-made top six center in exchange for Elias Lindholm. So, do you want to just try to keep your window open and bring in who knows what it is as the piece? Are you trying to pry and keep your window open, or do you just bite the bullet and say, damn it, instead of getting a middling asset or another top six center who's in his late 20s, early 30s, let's just try to take a chance on a home run with Kuhlman's and we still get another first round pick?
Two things quickly. Could, hypothetically, if Calgary say Lindholm is available after he says, no, I'm not re-signing, could other teams negotiate with him?
That's what happened with Severson.
Okay, that's why that's right. So QF Pro said is two first things is worth it for 1 year of Lindholm. I don't think Columbus would do this if they don't know Lindholm is going to re-sign.
I don't think Jarmo Kekalainen gives a shit right now.
Yeah, that's also
right.
fair.
Like, I think he's got to do what he can to make next year's team as good as possible, or else he is going to get fired.
Yes. Secondly, I think Chris Conroy is his name, right?
Craig Conroy.
Mm-hmm. He's still new to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think he needs to really look at what this Calgary team is. Like you keep saying, like keep the window open, keep the window open. It's like, what is the window? Like everybody in your division is getting so much better besides you. Like maybe it is just time to pull the plug and do what Chicago have done and Philadelphia are in the current process of doing right now, right? Like
I don't think you need to go that deep in Calgary.
Maybe you don't have to go that deep. You could do a St. Louis, for example, where you bring up the next wave. LA, yeah. But if I'm him, like I like the approach of saying, like, hey, do you want to be here or no? Because we're gonna get what we can for you right now.
We're not letting you walk for now.
They have got the guys that are available. Like, who wouldn't want a Chris Tanev? Like he'd be unreal. I'd love Chris Tanev on the Oilers. He'd be phenomenal. Awesome. So I actually really like the approach of trying to get younger guys and just retooling on the fly. And if it doesn't work, then you strip it down. But you also have Huberdeau signed, Kadri signed, like all these other guys, right?
But if you do it right, you can be back to being competitive in like a year or two.
Yeah.
Like if, again, young players now make an impact quicker than ever. So you go get a Carson Kuhlmans. You trade Hanifin, and maybe you can go to some other team. Maybe Toronto gives you a Nick Robertson for him or something. You know what I mean, right? Like those prospects who they're going to be NHL players. Maybe their first line, maybe their third line, whatever. They're going to be NHL players. They're young. Take your risks on those guys. Fill your roster with them. Hope you hit real nicely on a couple of them. In 2 years, you'll have a bunch of cap space. Bring in a couple more free agents, and boom, you're back to being competitive. It doesn't have to be like a Philly or Chicago 5-6 year rebuild. You can do this thing right in Calgary, and that's where that Lindholm trade idea kind of comes from.
And now's the right time to do it because you've got two guys who have just signed new deals in the coach and GM, right? Like, now's your opportunity to have that leeway with the ownership.
Yep. All right, let's take a look at what everyone is saying in the chat. Tyler Mulick said, let's go get Peak. He's talking about Andrew Peak, who's a name that's starting to generate a little bit of buzz. He's on Frank Saravalli's trade targets list. 25 years old, right shot D-man, $2.75 million against the cap.
I'm out.
Why?
Who is Andrew Peak? Like, what is Andrew Peak better than? He's a right shot, right? Is he better than like a CC? Like, is he better than what you've got? That's kind of my thing. Like, where do you upgrade? Is it worth just keeping hold of his CC or like seeing how Desharnais improves and kind of stuff like that? Like, and plus his cap hit, like, I don't know if it's good enough. I want someone a little cheaper. Like, I feel like the Oilers need to be more flexible with the cap. You see what I mean?
He's 6'3", 200 pounds. That's tempting.
He's right shot, right?
Right shot.
Okay, yeah.
If it's one of those, like, you move CC for a third and then you go trade a third for Andrew Peak, like, that's a hell of a gamble to take, you know?
What's this guy been like? Like, I feel like we're in the Vlad Gavrikov territory again, where I just haven't heard of this. I
don't know enough about Peak to really be like, oh yeah, he can handle top pairing minutes on the Oilers. Because if you're subbing out Cody Ceci to save $500,000 or whatever for this guy, you need to be sure he can play with Darnell Nurse and give you reliable top 4 minutes. I don't know if that's a lock. Is that a risk worth taking? Sometimes, it's the grass is always greener, right? He's in the like, oh, Ceci not good, blah, blah. And I agree, Ceci had a bad year. 2 years ago, we were all singing Cody Ceci's praises, though. So you bring in Andrew Peak at 25 years old. Like, I'm torn on it because it's like, what's the upside? Is the upside that he's better than Ceci? Sure. I know some analytics people might convince you he's better than Ceci already, maybe. But it's still a risk. You don't know how a guy's going to adapt to having to play in that kind of a role.
I know this stat is what it is, but I'm going to say it anyway. Andrew Peak was minus 41 last season. The next defenseman on the team, Tim Burney, was minus 26. Who played 59 games, and it was Goodbranson who played 20. He was minus 24 at 70. Yeah, it kind of is what it is.
Bad team.
For sure, right? But like that's a big gap. Like I was kind of hoping there'd be someone right there next to him. I got to look more into him before I give any kind of strong opinion for or against him, but I just would hope the Oilers believe in their guys a little bit more, maybe, than just grabbing someone like this.
Yeah. What did Frank say about Peak on Andrew Peak was 19 on his list. He said, do the math. Werenski, Provorov, Severson, and Yaremchuk make up Columbus's new top 4. Goodbranson isn't going anywhere. Denton Matachuk is knocking on the door. Bean's coming off an injury. Boquist is only 22. Nick Blankenberg's there. They have so many D-men.
Blankenberg. Ooh, another AJ boy.
He just says that makes Peak the odd man out, at least from afar, to move somewhere else with 3 seasons at a cost-controlled number. Like, again, very tempting gamble to take, because if it hits and you have 3 seasons of this dude at under $3 million, you're laughing. But it's a gamble, man. It's a gamble.
It's the same gamble you took with Cody Ceci 2 years ago when you signed him to a 3-year deal, right?
I think a bit more upside just because of the age, but it's similar.
For sure, yeah.
Tyler Mulick says the Oilers should go get Alexis Lafreniere, the former first overall pick. I haven't heard him in a ton of rumors, but I will say I think the Rangers might do something this offseason that stuns us. Lafreniere is an RFA, no ARB rights. So, like, if you're the Rangers, keeping him for another year until he gets his ARB rights, or 2 more years, however much time is left, keeping him till he gets his ARB rights is probably safe just because he's going to be so cheap. And again, if he pops, you're going to be loving life. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to really do something to shake up that room. I don't know if trading Lafreniere shakes up the room, though. Like
what kind of impact does he really have on the room, right? Like,
what
is he? I guess he's a 3rd-year guy now, 21 years old.
Mm-hmm. He's ARB eligible next summer. So, like, I think you keep him for 1 more year. Then when he's ARB eligible, maybe you look at moving him. But I wonder what the Rangers are going to do. I haven't heard a lot about Lafreniere, though. And honestly, if you're Edmonton, like,
I wouldn't bother.
He's a left shot, wouldn't fit perfectly. The upside's tempting because he's a smart hockey player. And like, you put him with one of McDavid or Draisaitl, maybe he pops. But I don't know.
The thing that's glaring out at me when I look at his page here, Tyler, 7 playoff games this season, 0 points. Didn't the Oilers just go through this with half their damn team? Like, guys just weren't contributing in the playoffs. Like, I think Lafreniere he's obviously not hit the potential that everyone thought he was going to, but he had 39 points this season. That's not bad for a guy that was buried mostly on the third line throughout the year. Like, it'd be interesting to see him on a team. If I was a team like San Jose, for example, I would take a shot at what this could be and play him in the top 6, see what you really got there. So I wouldn't be in the market if I was you. You need bigger aspirations than what someone could be. We're past that now. We already got Nygaard and Haas out of the way.
Gaetan Haas got married this weekend.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations to Gaetan Haas. I follow him on Instagram. That's how I know that. What else do we got going on here in the chat? We haven't even gone to our short for giant offseason question yet today. Oh, look, a bunch of you. So baked 7. Keith is in there as well. You're asking about Travis Konecny, a guy we've spent a fair amount of time talking about on this show, Liam. Pierre LeBrun, the first of the big insiders to come out and link the Edmonton Oilers to Travis Konecny. That happened after our show on Friday, so we haven't had a chance to dig into it. And the short for giant question is, what's the most you'd be willing to give up for Travis Konecny? Now, if you're sitting there and you're watching the show and you're click-clack, you're typing away, and you're going to say, Yamamoto, a third, and Ceci. Giddy up, because that's not getting you Travis Konecny. You're paying out the nose for this guy. He is cost-controlled. He is damn good, and he would fit in like a freaking glove to this Oilers top 6. He is the dream offseason fit. He is the at-home level addition you'd be making to this forward group. So what's the most you'd give up? I'll tell you right now, the package starts with your 2024 first-round pick. You don't have one this year, you'd be giving up your one next year.
Yep.
What's part B to this? Okay, it includes the first, and Yamo or Fogle are the cap dump. Okay?
Let's call it Yamo.
Okay, first and Yamo's the cap dump. Remember, he's close to a negative asset at this point. What's piece 3? Is it Raphael Lavoie? Probably not even close to enough.
No, not enough.
Is it Xavier Bourgault? Would you do it?
I would do it. I think there would be temptation from Philly as well on him.
I think so as well. I think maybe you could look at Bourgault and say, oh, we'll give him a year and one more year to play pro. Then he's up with the big team. One of those guys who can really come out of the rebuild with us nicely while he's hitting his prime.
Yep.
Bourgault, maybe. Would you do Philip Broberg?
Yeah, I would. I would do Broberg. I think I wouldn't do anything. That would be it.
So you wouldn't go to Holloway?
No, I would not go to Holloway. If I even went to Broberg and I was giving up Yamo, Broberg, and the first,
Yamo's not a positive asset, right? Like,
yeah, that's fair.
Philly.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe you ask them to keep like just a tad bit of money.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point.
Just a tad.
If they could keep $1 million of Konecny,
even if it brings it down to $5 million, $500K,
sure,
for 2 years, like I would ask for that, and I would throw in the third, fourth, whatever it may be as well, just to kind of get it over the hump. But I would not trade Dylan Holloway because I think you need to get rid of Fogle.
Yeah. Tyler Mulick said him or Wilson would be great. Yeah, mistaken Mexican Yamo in a second. It's not even close. Sergeant Battle says he would do Yamo the first and Bourgault. Dave is in. He agrees with that one. So Baked says first Yamo Lavoie again. I don't think that's going to be quite enough. I know you followed up on that as well. Davin says he had a dream Holloway got traded. So
whoa. Oh, would it be a nightmare? Dun, dun, dun. Stay tuned. We'll find out.
Here's where I come out on the Broberg thing. I do Bourgault. Bourgault is, again, your top 6 is so locked up for the next few years that, like, you can move Bourgault. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, it always sucks to move prospects, but we're not dealing with a piece in Travis Konecny who's just coming onto the scene here. He gets hurt. I understand that. But, like, let's look at these numbers, AB. Flash those up. He scores a lot of goals on bad hockey teams, man. How many goals do you think he scores on a good freaking hockey team?
26 years old, too.
You could re-sign him in 2 years, get him through his prime. Like, he's a right winger. You need a right winger. Someone said first Yamo Lavoie on a fourth. I just don't see how Lavoie would have interest to the Flyers, if I'm being honest with you. I think he's a bit too old of a prospect for them to be interested and not enough high-end upside there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't know. Maybe they would. Like, it just depends how badly they want to strip it all the way down, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they needed Lavoie to play, but I think I don't know. I wouldn't touch Holloway. Holloway would not be in the conversation with me on this one.
QF Pro says Borgo, a first, and Yamo. I'll do it. Here's where I'm okay with trading Philip Broberg. Like, what are we doing here? Trying to win a cup next year?
Yeah.
Philip Broberg's your fourth best left shot defenseman.
Yes. And he's not getting ahead of those guys unless there's a mighty fall off from somebody.
Yeah. Or a huge step forward from Broberg that we haven't seen yet. But this isn't, he's very young. I do think Philip Broberg is going to be an NHL defenseman. As the year went on, I was less convinced he'll ever be a top 3 defenseman, right? Either a guy who's going to play on a top pairing, which would be a 2, or a number 3, which I always describe a number 3 as like someone who can be a damn good second pairing D-man, right? I think he could maybe be a 4 one day. I give that up to get 2 years of Travis Konecny, man.
Yeah, me too. 1,000,000%. Travis Konecny makes your team better today. Broberg, he's just not doing that right away.
And it sucks, right? Because you spend time, you draft, develop these guys. You would love to have Philip Broberg hit and be a top 4 guy next year, but at some point, you need to make a decision on him. And I think
I think the decision was almost made last season when Broberg didn't make the team out of camp and then was playing like 4 minutes a night in the playoffs.
Vinny Desharnais comes into the lineup, and I know they shoot wrong ways, but you could have moved someone over. Like Broberg could have forced their hand a bit this year, and he didn't.
Is there a price value on Konecny yet? Do we know an estimation of what it could cost by anyone?
I think you're probably looking at a 2 to 3 asset deal, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Do you think the Provorov deal? I know it's hard to say because it was 3 that's probably a tough one to even evaluate. There's so many cap dumps in there.
Just looking at Konecny, someone says, but would he even slot into power play 1? He scored only 5 power play goals last year, which means 26 of his 31 goals came away from the power play. 3 of them were shorthanded. You want to talk about improving your penalty kill? Travis Konecny helps you do that. And I know everyone's going to sit there and be like, why would you spend more on forwards? You have enough firepower, blah, blah, blah. If Travis Konecny helps you score more and Travis Konecny helps your PK, makes you more difficult to play against. How many times did we hear that ahead of the deadline from Frank? That Ken Holland wants this team to be harder to play against. Yeah, Travis Konechny's 5'10". That doesn't jump off the page to you, but he skates like a demon. He plays physical. He makes you tougher to play against.
Yeah, I've seen that a couple of times in the chat too, being like, "Oh, well, he's just the same size as Yamo." It's like, but they're different. They're different players. Konecny hits a lot of boxes. I love the fact he can score 5-on-5. Like this team has struggled doing that massively for a little bit now,
and that's not even like we need players who can score 5-on-5 with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Never mind away from them. That's a whole different conversation, and that's something that needs to get done this offseason. But
I'm all in.
I'm all in on Konecny too. Billy Dean says a first Borgo and Broberg and Yamamoto for Konecny, but he's 1.75 retained. I think that's too much. I mean, at that point, that's almost like an Eichel level trade.
Yeah, because was the Eichel one? Tuck, Payton, Krebs first, and something else,
and another first or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I mean, hey, if they're keeping like half of it, sure, but I don't know.
Yep,
that seems like a ton. Do you think I think Konecny will get moved this summer.
Oh yeah, I think he's gonna move this
just
summer.
Because of the Provorov deal.
I'll tell you, he's moved by the end of day 2 of the draft. I bet.
That's a good one.
Which is coming up too. It's like
that
2.5 weeks away.
12 days. Isn't it June 24th?
I think it's the 28th this year.
Because
day 1's 28, day 2's 29.
NHL
30th I fly back, and then the 1st of July is
you're right. It's the 28th.
It's 28th, yeah. There you go. Let us know your thoughts on that. Would you be? Where do you draw the line? Would you move? If Philly said, "Sorry, we have another deal coming in for Konecny, Ken, it's a first Holloway and Yamo, or we're not doing it." Dude, it's so hard not to pull the trigger on that.
First Holloway and Yamo.
It makes you so much better for next season. I hate the idea of giving up Dylan Holloway, but I would not even whisper his name in the trade calls. But if that was the line, it's so hard to not just say you'll do it. So hard. Oh,
here's something I'll throw you. They get the deal done now before free agency, and they say, "Hey, here's the rights to JVR too," and he'll sign with you for 1 year, $1 million.
Well, like if JVR was, he's probably gonna cost more than that. But I feel you though. Yeah,
you never know.
You can grab the rights to JVR, your right side next year.
Yeah,
all of a sudden looks pretty dangerous if that's the case. Yeah, sure.
I'd like a Morgan Frost too. It'd be a nice one.
Tyler Mulick says, I would do that for Tom Wilson IMO. I would only do it for Konecny because you get a second year.
That's what the value is.
Yeah, that's
get
why
2
you give up.
years.
So Big says we can't give up Holloway, but like, why not?
I wouldn't.
Well, like, what is Dylan Holloway? Like, again, I think he's going to be an everyday top 9 winger. And it's almost like Broberg, right? Broberg will be an everyday NHLer at some point.
Yes.
Is he a really good third pairing D-man? Is Dylan Holloway a really good third line forward who skates fast and all that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Or is he going to be a 25-plus goal guy that slides into your top 6 and is a fit for the next decade? The Oilers need to make decisions on these guys. If you think Philip Broberg is never going to be anything more than a third pairing D-man for you in the Connor McDavid era, bye-bye. Cash in on his value or whatever's left of it now.
Well, yeah, what's the point?
If you think Dylan Holloway is going to be a top 6 winger for you who scores 25 goals next to Connor McDavid for the next 6 seasons, don't move him for anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you think Dylan Holloway is just going to be a good third liner who gets you 15 goals, if you think he's just Kyler Yamamoto again, trade him.
Yeah, I agree. People say it like Tyler Muir that we need Holloway to contribute next year if we want to compete. I don't think that it's around. I mean, of course, you want to have those value contracts, but there's got to be other things out there, right? Like Holloway didn't do it this year, and the others look to be better than they were the year before. Obviously, it didn't end up that way, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's an interesting offseason.
And I'll take that comment from you. Like, we need Holloway to be contributing next year if we want to compete. You need someone in that spot to contribute next year if you want to compete. Travis Konecny contributes next year. You'll compete. Anyways, we'll keep going on with that. So Big says, do you remember Holloway playing with McLeod before the injury? They were going crazy, man. You can't base it off a handful of games you saw him play with Ryan McLeod, though, right? Like, I don't know.
Like, I'm not, like you said, we're not out here trading Dylan Holloway. We don't even want him to be involved in these conversations, but we're saying, like,
if that was the only way.
Yeah. Something I would consider.
Tempting. All right, let's get to our player grade for today.
Yeah.
We talked about him just a second ago, but it's the big man, Vincent Descharnais. I think at this point, 12 months ago, and this is where I'm going with my regular season grade for Vinny. He didn't score a goal. He'll get one, though. Had a couple of good looks. If you would have told Oilers fans 12 months ago, Vincent Descharnais, everyday D-man halfway through next season, a good chunk of people watching this show, Oilers fans in general, I should say, probably would have been like, who? Isn't that the guy in Bakersfield?
Yeah.
Who is that? Huh? Wait, how did they get him? Right?
Mm-hmm.
He ended up coming up, man, and being an everyday defenseman for you. The whole Vinny in, we win, whatever the hell we were calling it back in January. I don't remember what J1.
With Vinny, we winny.
Sure.
You overcomplicate it every time.
I think just the step he took going from American Hockey League guy to everyday NHL defenseman who you could trust in a handful of different situations, he gets an A- for me in the regular season. Sergeant Battle actually almost nailed it. Good work, man. A-, just because, again, you go from afterthought, injured in training camp, everyday NHL D-man. That's awesome. That is great progression. 26 years old. It was an awesome story. Gave the Oilers some fight and some toughness, which I think Vinny's presence bled into some other players too. I think it really did give them an emotional spark. We saw he was tight with Stuart Skinner. All these guys in the room who went through Bakersfield all played with Vinny at some point because he's been in the minors for so long, right?
Forever.
So I loved it. But in the playoffs, he just wasn't good enough. And that's fine, man. Again, he'll get better. Even though he's only 26, he's clearly a bit of a late bloomer in terms of his hockey game. He'll get better. The playoffs was just a really, really tough lesson, so I go C+.
I think I liked what you said, like he'll get better. And I think a big thing for Descharnais this summer is the fact that he's training to be an NHL player this season. Yeah. He's not training to be like, well, maybe I'll make it. Like he knows he's probably going to be on the team.
He knows what he needs to work on. You've had your cup of coffee, so to speak.
Yeah, and like you said, 100% chance of returning. I see no doubt in that either. I was a little unsure what you were going to do for the playoff grade, to be honest, because there was moments you were calling for his name to be in the bleachers.
But I actually thought he was good towards the end of the Vegas series. He started to get better, almost like he found his groove in that way.
I agree. And I gave him a solid C on my grading, and I gave him a solid A for the regular season as well. I think, like you said, like he came into this team, made a very positive impact for essentially all 6 games, right? Like, and was very strong and really helped the Oilers out in many, many ways. So I'm a big fan of Vinny. I think this playoffs will be a big learning curve for him and the rest of the team too. And I think he's going to come back in a big way. I'm excited to see One, score from his office, which was big this season.
If he
got 5
scores on a
assists.
floating wrist shot from the blue line, he had a couple where he snuck into the
I
slot.
know.
That's how he'll score.
That was scary. Do you remember the one in the playoffs where he like came across the crease like Bobby Orr style? It was crazy. Yeah, Vincent Descharnais, A from me, C for the playoffs, and 100% chance of returning. With Vinny, we winny.
Yeah. Good news said 100% chance of return, but not 100% full season on the team. No, I think at worst he's your 7 next year, right? Like even if he needs to come out of the lineup every once in a while, he's your 7 next year. So
yeah, contract's too good.
Yep.
For what he does too, like
penalty killer. Like again, if he can take a bit of a step forward next year, not even like a huge step forward, but like just take a bit of a step forward, be a little more trustworthy in your own end, make some smarter decisions with the puck on your stick. He got in trouble when he tried to do too much.
I think it's up here he needs to be better at, not with his skill.
Yeah, that's
his
fair,
skill set is there.
Yep. Get some better foot speed too. I know for a guy that size, like you're always going to be limited by that in a way, but he'll find his way. I'm excited to see him next year. I think he's back. I mean, the Oilers had teams calling last summer about looking to just pick him up for nothing kind of thing. And those said, no, we want to keep this guy. We believe in him. And he made them look smart for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there you go. There's our player grade for our friends at Star Mechanical. Shout out to Star Mechanical, Sherwood Ford for the giant offseason question today, and Betway. NBA Finals game number 5 tonight. Denver going to wrap this bad boy up.
Ogre. Playtime is ogre, as Shrek
I think
would
Miami
say.
3-1 plus 300. You don't like those odds?
No.
Okay.
They're so good. Like there was points in the fourth quarter last game where the Joker was just on the bench because he was in foul trouble, and Denver was still just absolutely dummying them. They're just so good, and I think they really deserve it. And Miami has been a fantastic run, but I think similar to Florida, I think this Cinderella story is over.
Florida sports fans get both teams in the chip, and neither of them win.
Yeah, too bad. So sad. Go Nugs.
All right. Well, there you go. I'm tempted to go Miami at plus 300, but maybe you're talking me out of it. All good. All good. All right. That's a wrap on today's edition of the show. Shout out to everyone in the chat.
Yep.
Very active today. Loved it. Hit the like button before you go. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Tomorrow, we might do another Pacific Division offseason preview. Ooh. Wednesday, I believe we'll have Frank on Wednesday. And then Thursday, I don't know. Friday, Jay will be here. So,
yeah.
How many more shows? I'm live at the draft or in Nashville for a whole week. How
many more shows? We have this week, so that's 5.
4 more this week.
Oh, yeah, 4
and
more.
Then 5, and then 5. So 14 more, plus a free agent specials, 15, plus our season finale show on Monday the 3rd. So 16 more.
Who's counting?
Almost there.
Well, we are. All right, that's a wrap on today's edition of the show. We'll be back tomorrow at noon Mountain Time. New episode of the Real Life Podcast drops this afternoon as well. Talk to you tomorrow.